Steve Guttenberg here, and I am the audiophiliac. And in today's show, I'm going to do a review of a Phono Preamp, the new one from Zesto. It's called the Andros Spirit. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Zesto offers the Spirit in two versions, a moving magnet only version and a similar model, but one that does moving coil and moving magnet. Full stop. Now, me being me, and thanks to my recent experiments of using step-up transformers with moving coil cartridges running into moving magnet phono preamps, I think that's the better way to go, better than using a moving coil cartridge into a high-gain moving coil phono input. That's the premise of today's review. Now, I did a similar story to this a few months ago here on the channel, and I will link to that, but that was more about the transformers themselves. And today's show is going to be a straight-ahead review of the Andros Spirit. Now, it's an all-tube phono preamp. There's no solid-state parts in the signal chain, the signal path of this design. It uses a very sophisticated power supply unit, and I should point out, by the way, that Zesto actually offers 4 phono preamps in their line. They also make a preamplifier and a power amplifier, but they're heavy into phono preamps. And this one, the Spirit, is the most affordable one, but takes advantage of a lot of trickle-down, let's say, technology from the more expensive Zesto phono preamps. Looking at the front panel, you see that window with the 4 12AX7 tubes. There's no switches or controls at all on the front panel. Very clean design. And over the Spirit's rear end is pretty simple. There's the moving magnet input and also the line output. That's it. No controls, no adjustments of any kind. And I like it like that. Oh, and while we're back there, take note that the on-off switch is on the rear end. It's not a standby thing. No. That is the power switch to turn the Spirit on and off. Now, I did ask why, and the answer is it's closer to the power input, the IEC connector. It's simpler to do it that way. It saves a lot of money rather than putting a separate power switch in the front. That's the logic of it. You can disagree. I find it not at all a hardship. I just reach over and turn it on and off. That's it. Anyway, and I love that there's no controls. There's nothing to fuss over. There's nothing to agonize over. And that's a relief. So for this review of this moving magnet phono stage, I used a tasty assortment of my cartridges, my moving coil cartridge collection, starting with the Lyra Delos, the Ortofon Cadenza Blue, the Ojas Denon 103. Those are all low output moving coil cartridges. But I wanted to also use a moving magnet, but in this case I used something that's close to a moving magnet, which is the Grado Platinum 3. It's a moving iron cartridge. It has a similar output to a moving magnet, so it was ideal for this test. And I will tell you right up front, when I used the Grado cartridge with the Spirit, I was knocked out. I've listened to this cartridge a lot. I have never heard it sound this good. But the meat and potatoes of this review is using this moving magnet phono preamp with step-up transformers with those moving coil cartridges I just told you about. Now, the warranty, by the way, runs to 2 years, and I'm going to show you now the complete specifications. The tube complement, in case I didn't mention that earlier, is 4 12AX7 tubes. They are made by JJ. The Spirit is handcrafted in California and receives 50 hours of burn-in time at the factory. After the burn-in, they check and measure all the specs to make sure they are on target. The price of the Spirit moving magnet phono preamp is $2,997. The moving coil version is $1,000 upcharge from that, so it's $3,997. Very important detail, if you buy the moving magnet version of the Spirit and you change your mind 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, you change your mind and say, you know what, I just want to buy this. I should have bought the moving coil version. You can just upgrade to the moving coil. You send yours back to the factory in California and they will do the upgrade. So you always have that option, is always open to you. Since this is such a phono preamp oriented company, it's no surprise that Zesto offers a standalone step-up transformer called the Alasso. It's $3,600. It's a lot of money, but one of the cool things, extra cool things about the Alasso is that it is highly flexible in terms of loading options and step-up or ratio options. You can dial in up to like 40 different levels of step-up. Well, very important to mention is that Zesto is not a direct sale company. They sell through brick and mortar dealers in the United States and through their distributors worldwide. And you know what that means? Their customers can actually hear the thing, see the thing before they buy it. How cool is that? Now here's how I approached my listening tests for the Spirit. Now my reference phono preamp is the Parasound JC3 Plus. It's a moving magnet or moving coil phono preamp. It is solid state. It's been my reference for about 6 years, I'm guessing, at this point. And it's good. It's stuck around all these years because I do really like it. So what I did with the Spirit is I took out the Parasound, I inserted the Spirit into the system, and I just listened to the Spirit without comparing it to the Parasound for at least 3 weeks. So I was acclimating to the sound of the Spirit. I'm going from solid state phono preamp, long-term reference, to an all-tube phono preamp. That was really interesting. And I didn't do any A/B comparisons for those 3 weeks or so. And the very first piece of music I played was this one, the Rolling Stones' Some Girls album. This is their, in my opinion, well, I was going to say their last great album, or one of their last great albums. Came out, I think, in the late 70s. And this is the mobile fidelity pressing. And it sounded more viscerally alive. I mean, Mick and Keith are the stars of the show. They're up front. But Charlie Watts' drumming was so much more impressive with the Spirit in the system. It had more slam. It was rocking harder. He was really, pushing that band forward. And Bill Wyman's bass lines, like on Miss You, woo, it was just like so tight, so clear, so reach out and touch. Yeah, I was really digging the sound of what the Spirit was putting out. So the energy coming out of my speakers, my reference speakers, I didn't change speakers over the course of the review. It was just the Pure Audio Project Duet 15s. Oh, and the cartridge that I was using was the Dynavector XX2 low output moving coil cartridge running into the Zesto Alasso step-up transformer. I gotta tell you about these two records that really grabbed me. They're by this group called the Staple Junior Singers. They're not in any way connected to the Staple Singers, though they sing similar types of music. But anyway, the Staple Junior Singers, they made their first record in 1975. When do we get paid? They were struggling. They were just starting out in Mississippi. They only made, I think, 500 copies of the album. That's it. And it was over, But then Luakabop, the record company, reissued it a couple of years ago. And it's so amazing. This music has got such soul. It's gospel, it's soul, it's funky. And they're all such incredible singers, and they're kids. All these years go by, and now the Staple Junior Singer in 2023 recorded a follow-up. It's called Searching. So they're older, and it sounds like they got more years on the road, right? And they have this depth to their sound, and it's bigger and fuller and just so good. So they've only gotten better over the years, and both of these records, the original one and Searching, they sound, let's just say, authentic. That is the best word. These are real people making music together in a room. Actually, this new record was recorded in a small church in Mississippi. So it's not a fancy recording studio. They're doing overdubs and tweaking things. No, this is like This is what went down at the recording session, is what you hear when you play this record. So next up, I want to talk about this Brian Eno record, Forever Voiceless. It's on clear vinyl. And this, it's ambient music, but with extra energy to it. But it is so open and spacious and deep sounding. It decouples from the speakers. The speakers essentially disappear and the sound is just filling the room. And so it's ambient and it's sweet and it's beautiful, but then it has these synth parts that are just jabbing you, this energy, this like lightning strikes. There's this force to this music that surprises you and stuff. So it's not his usual ambient kind of music. So there's a lot going on in terms of texture and dynamics. So, oh, and by the way, the transformer that I'm using at this point is the Audio Note S1. Unlike the Alasso that's very flexible, this one is not so flexible, but it sounds really good. And the cartridge that I'm using is the Lyra Delos for the Eno listening sessions. And I am just really knocked out by the sound, that it sounds not at all stereotypically tubey, as in soft or mellow or mushy or soggy. No, this sounds very alive, very clear. And like I'm saying about those synths with the zapping sounds, they have this kinetic force that really surprised me. Now at this point, I decided to switch over, continuing with everything the same, moving over to the Parasound JC3 Plus, its moving magnet input. So it's moving magnet input versus moving magnet input with the same cartridge and same transformer. And what I heard with the JC3 Plus was less energy, less excitement, less of that anything could happen sound that I was getting with the Spirit. But overall, in this first comparison between Parasound and Zesto, I would say I would definitely prefer the Zesto. Some of you guys complain I don't ever talk about classical music, which isn't true. It's just rare. But today I'm going to talk a little bit about this album for harp and cello. And the cartridge I was using at this point was not a moving coil cartridge. It was the Grado Platinum 3. It's a moving iron cartridge, similar in output to a moving magnet. So I was going straight in to the Parasound and also into the Zesto, no step-up transformers. And I'm playing this music, and it sounded so good. Just for the beauty factor and the plucking of the strings on the harp, really gorgeous. And I felt that that pluck was more correct, more truthful with the Zesto. And that the JC3 was losing some of that transient energy of the fingers plucking in the strings. The cello sounded similar on both Phono preamplifiers, but there was something about the way that the Zesto just opened up the soundstage. I mean, I spent some time figuring out, is this a close mic recording or a distant mic recording? It was one of those, it was a really nice balance of how close, not too far, just right. So again, this is straight into the moving magnet section of both Phono preamps. So to continue, I played this recording. It's a David Byrne, Brian Eno collaboration album. It's called My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. This is from the 70s, maybe the 80s. And it's, I think, pretty sure it's all analog, and there's so much stuff going on. They're sampling things off the radio, or I should say recording things off the radio randomly. Preachers, all kinds of crazy stuff's going on in the mix. And a great rhythm sections going, cracking away, and lots of synths, lots of textures. And the cartridge I was using was the Devon Turnbull OJAS version of the Denon 103, the classic Denon 103 low output moving coil cartridge. And for that one, I was using a step-up transformer, obviously, and I was using actually the matching OJAS step-up transformer, which is sold just as the transformers, but you need to plug those transformers into a bass. And the bass that I used was made by this gentleman, Ned Clayton, who sells his wares on eBay. So the combination of the two is less than $600 for the OJAS transformers and the Ned Clayton bass. And then as for the sound with the Spirit, it's that crackling energy. This is the crackling of the radio broadcast that they were taping, not really sampling, I don't think, in those days. But in any case, it's a very interesting kind of another version of ambient music. Just you could feel the creative juices just flying through this recording session, or these sessions that produced this album. And I really felt that the OJAS transformer matched to the OJAS Denon 103 cartridge with the Spirit. It was really exciting, like shockingly exciting. I mean, I've heard this recording many times, but the life that I was getting from the music, very, very impressive. One more time, back on the Parasound JC3 Plus, yes, and it was softer sounding. I mean, you could turn it around and saying what the JC3 Plus was bringing to the party was more body to it, more fullness, a softer but tonally richer sounding balance. So maybe that's the best way I can sum up the difference in the sound between the Parasound JC3 Plus and the Zesto Spirit. All right, so now I'm ready to tackle, so Steve, what do you really think of the Zesto Spirit moving magnet phono preamp? I'm pleased. I'm pleased that it sounds surprisingly good. Not particularly tube-y, like not warm, full, fleshy, richer. No, it's not doing that. It actually is doing sort of the opposite, right? It has this life to it, this spark, this dynamic freedom that is very, very exciting. When used with moving coil cartridges with step-up transformers, that was the experiment that was the basis of this review. That instead of automatically always going for the high gain phono preamp, that maybe a better way, a more interesting way at least, of approaching using low output moving coil cartridges is to use them with moving magnet phono preamps with step-up transformers as opposed to high gain phono preamps. And I want to stress this over and over again, that transformers all sound different from each other. Even more than one phono cartridge sounds compared to another, let's say similarly priced phono cartridge. They sound really different. Some sound fat, some sound really detailed and clear. Some, they're doing different things, and sometimes in unpredictable ways, because it depends on which phono cartridge you're using them with, using the step-up transformers with. So if you're the kind of audiophile that you have your system, it's sounding great, and then you get bored with the sound, and you're a vinyl-oriented audiophile, instead of buying a new cartridge, maybe you should be buying transformers. Using the moving magnet input, if I assume you have one, on whatever phono preamp you're using now, and then getting a step-up transformer and see what that does for you. That's it. As for this one, as for the Zesto Spirit, I think I found something really special here. So, all right, now we're going to do it. You know it, you love it, the Audiophiliac viewer system of the day. Hey, this is Steve's system. His preamp is a Schiit Freya Plus. Power amp is a Schiit Vidar 2. SA-CD player, Marantz SA-10. The headphones are Focal Clear MGs. Cables are by Kimber. Acoustic treatment is GIK. He has about 3,500 CDs and SA-CDs, and the speakers are by PSB. Okay, we are back. My name is Steve Guttenberg. It's true. You are watching the Audiophiliac Show. I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider joining my Patreon. You can join for a couple of bucks a month, up to $50 or even $100 a month. And at the top two tiers, you and I will have a conversation every month at the beginning of the month. And I've been making note recently that I have been making exclusive content just for my patrons that is not shown, in other words, other videos that are not shown here on YouTube. To see those other videos, you must subscribe to my Patreon. Check it out, think about it. You can join for a month or two and then split. You don't have to stick around forever. Anyway, again, thank you so much for watching. I truly do hope to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.